I'm Courtney. I'm a senior at Centennial High School, and you're listening to the West Data Podcast.
We can make sure students, if they don't go to college, there's other opportunities for them. And again, that's the sweet spot, I think, for CTE, is that it really allows them to go multiple directions because it's not just that they have a certification, they have the confidence, they have the knowledge, they've worked with industry, they have some leadership experience, and so they're just prepared differently.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special edition of the West Data Podcast. In case you can't tell, we're not in our normal studio.
No, we aren't.
Which is a little kind of strange, but welcome to the health lab.
Yeah, one of our
Renaissance.
CTE centers. It is top of the line, phenomenal in here. And Ken, if you're listening, if you're used to just listening to the podcast,
right,
this is one you're definitely gonna want to go to YouTube and watch the visual, because Ken will upload all kinds of good shots and fun things of our facilities. So.
Well, just to see this ambulance, this working ambulance, and the opportunities that our kids have to really put their hands on the auto stuff, the welding. So anyway, we're joined by a couple of awesome guests.
Great
Will
guests.
Schumaker.
I know, Will Schumaker and Wendy Small. Wendy is our middle school college and career counselor specific to CTE, career technical education.
Right.
And then Will Schumaker is our director over all of career technical education, which, as you're about to hear, is no small job.
It's a lot, and this is his first year in that role. But he's been an ad man. He's been with West Ada for 15 years. Wendy for 7 years. Yeah. So just a couple of people who really have kind of been there, done that, and now to take on as you're going to hear. Our CTE pathways, there's 26 different pathways. There's so much. So we're just excited that you're here, because trying to navigate all that as a parent or as a teacher, people who are familiar, it's just, there's a lot. So we're just really
I share
excited.
some expert CTE parent advice. So
big time CTE parents. So anyway, we're glad you're here. Enjoy the episode.
We are here today with two of our wonderful CTE colleagues. We have Wendy Small and Will Schumaker. Welcome.
Thanks. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. It's so fun. Part of the podcast is getting to speak with all of our amazing colleagues throughout the district, and the programs you put together for our students are just awesome, and we're looking forward to sharing them with our listeners today.
It's pretty cool to have you guys here. I guess the obvious 30,000-foot view question. Can you just kind of tell us, what is CTE for the real novice? Can you just give us a broad overview of what CTE, career and technical education, is, Will?
Sure. So just really briefly, there's a lot to it.
I know you could go forever.
You could go forever. But career technical education really is, in West Ada, we've invested a lot into it. One, the idea is that we're able to partner with industry. We're able to work with our students and our staff and bring really high quality programs that prepare them for careers.
Right.
And not every student will go immediately from high school straight into a career. Sometimes they go in and decide they want to go into college and get more education to be able to go deeper into that profession. But for CTE specifically, we're able to work with students to provide them with career-based learning opportunities, and really they're industry-driven. And that's one of the most important aspects of what we do, is that whatever programs we have in West Ada, they're aligned to what you would see in industry. They mirror that. So behind us, we have the ambulance simulator.
Which is so cool to be here.
We have a really cool EMT program, and we're able to prepare students for that real-world career. Now, they may not go immediately straight into emergency care. They may decide that they need to get some more training, some more hours, but we actually expose students to some industry experiences, internships, so they really get an idea of what it's like to have that career. And then they can decide to pivot one way or the other if that's what works for them.
Yeah, and that's really aligned with what we do here at West Ada, to be college and career ready. For so many years, it seems like education system was just focusing on college. And it's so refreshing to have it kind of caught up with the times and be college and career ready for all students to achieve and be successful in their careers. I love it.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Wendy, your role. Can you kind of describe your role? Because one of the reasons we really wanted to do this podcast too is to help people navigate. There's so many different options. Can you just kind of briefly describe what your role is?
So a big part of my role is going out and talking to our 8th graders and 9th graders and telling them about our programs.
Right.
I walk through the process of where they start, what grade level, if they have to travel to either Meridian or Renaissance, or if it's at their home high school. So my main job is to get out and talk to those kids so they know what's going on. Because there's a lot of opportunities. And so it's hard to go through all of it. And for the homeschool counselors, they have such big caseloads and stuff. So my goal is to get out and support those.
And you're one of our counselors in the district. Yeah?
I am a college and career counselor.
Specifically for CTE.
Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, it might be. I probably should have backed up a little bit, but Will, your role? I mean, you're driving a pretty big ship here. I mean, I'm sure no 2 days are the same, but what's your day to day kind of like leading this ship?
So as director, every day is a little bit different.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting director role because I work very closely with buildings. So I work closely with building principals, work closely with our teachers, which is great because as a building principal, that's one of the things I loved was working with students and working with teachers. And I was worried about moving into this role, being, losing that. So as a director, working closely still with teachers, I talk with teachers on a regular basis, our CTE folks, and working closely with building principals. And so I always see my main role as setting the vision for career technical education, and then really projecting down the road. What are the needs? Where are we headed? How can we best support students so that we can make sure they're ready, and that our teachers have the supports they need within CTE to be able to do their job and prepare students for that, whatever that next step is.
Right.
Yeah, and CTE, I mean, it's a whole nother, it's like a whole nother education system of its own because there are CTE standards, there are industry standards, there are professional organizations. It's a lot that goes into running all those programs, and we have the most robust CTE offerings in the state. So you don't have an easy job.
And I would agree. I think West Data is a standout in CTE. We have invested heavily into our programs, and rightly so. I think that what CTE does is really provide students with a competitive advantage when they walk out of high school with the professional knowledge, the technical knowledge, the academic knowledge. West Data is going to make sure they know how to read, write, and do math, right? That's really important.
Sure.
But then we also have the advantage, I think, for students to be able to have some technical skills. No matter what profession students go into, they're going to need to know how to navigate that system. And we expose students, whether they are in collision repair or CNA, to the jargon and the knowledge they need.
Because there is a jargon.
Absolutely. No matter which profession you go into, you're going to have to know that hidden vocabulary that
speak the language.
Have to. And so our students begin to understand that. And all of our programs end with some kind of a certification, industry certification. So welding, for example, they will end with an AWS Sense certification, and they can walk out and go get a job at a manufacturing facility, like a trailer welding facility, and use that certification immediately. Or they can do whatever it is next that they want to do. So that's pretty cool. And that is what's unique about CTE. And then we work really closely with our industry partners to make sure that what is happening in the classroom and our labs mirrors what's happening in industry. So we have actually this week our students in our auto program are heading out to their internships at Kendall Ford and other intern locations, and they actually get real world experience of what does it really look like. Right before winter break, our CNA students were out at their clinicals, working with like Life Care Center, other retirement homes, to nursing homes, to really get an idea of what is it really like to be a CNA. One thing to hear the theory in the classroom, another thing to apply it. And so that's the component of CT that I think is huge, is the hands-on application of what we do. So not only do we talk about the theory and talk about this is what it looks like in practice, but also then actually getting into it and getting that hands-on experience that you just can't replicate in the classroom.
Yeah, that's very cool.
And Wendy, you started to touch on it a little bit before. You mentioned as a college and career counselor for CTE students that we have different locations for CTE centers throughout the district. And it doesn't matter what your home school is. Like my son goes to Eagle High and he comes to Renaissance for his fire program. He goes to Meridian for welding and diesel. And he's all over the district. And there are options, right? Transportation options, that kind of thing. How many different centers do we have?
So we have Meridian and Renaissance, those are our main ones. If you are at Centennial, Rocky, or Eagle, you want to take welding, you'll start out at Owyhee at our welding facility there for that first semester, and then for welding 3 and 4, you would come to Meridian. So 2 main campuses, but we have a welding facility at Owyhee to kind of help split up the caseload at Meridian.
Right. And some of the like earlier courses in the CTE programs and stuff are delivered at their home school, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So there's a lot, our animal science, plant science, some of our health sciences, they start at their home high school. So they take those entry level and then they would travel their junior, senior year for their advanced classes.
That's cool. Well, so when my son was a junior, he came over here to Renaissance. He was going to Mountain View High School, and he would come over here for his engineering stuff. I don't know, Will, how big of a pain's the wrong word to use probably, but there are logistical issues. How do we handle that? How do we help parents navigate all that?
Well, to say that it's logistically, a challenge. I mean, that's for sure, right? I think that's just the reality. What I will speak to, a couple things I'll speak to. One is that it's very efficient for our taxpayers. So instead of having these facilities at every single one of our big high schools, we can consolidate and have really high quality facilities at a couple of locations. We can support them administratively, clerically, and it's just much more efficient for our taxpayers to do it that way. What the challenges of that kind of a system are that we get to move students around our district, and for I think the most part, our students are really excited to be able to go take these classes, and so they're willing to get on a bus.
My son was, absolutely.
Absolutely, right?
Yeah,
get on a bus or get in a car and travel and go to that site. Now, some students for example, they are in diesel and welding or diesel and auto, and there are multiple programs at Meridian High or here at Renaissance. And so they end up coming for a full day and staying for that day, or they end up transferring to Meridian High School and being a full-time student there because they just love the program so much and it makes sense for them. So the challenge is definitely getting students to those locations. And there's unique challenges in CTE that we're always facing, right? To be relevant, just like in education. But it's really good for kids. So I guess I look at that and I go, those are sacrifices we'll make and logistics we'll do in the background to make it all work.
Right. And there is,
the payoff's
there's
big,
transportation available for every program. For every student, no matter what you want to do, there's transportation to that program for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and Will, you kind of already touched on this, but I'd love to hear from you, Wendy. I mean, we talked a little bit about balancing teaching theory versus hands-on experience for our kids. And I know that, again, you've touched on this, but how important is it for our kids to get this hands-on experience? Why is that so huge?
Because there's a difference of hearing about it, right? Like you're going to hear like, oh, I'm going to do these rounds. This is how I take care of a patient. But it's different being out in that real world experience. There's nothing that can replace that personal experience of like, this is what it's like to be in this role. I relate it to like college, like going and checking out colleges, right? Like you can look on campus or pictures and stuff and be like, this place looks awesome. But when you go, you're like, I don't really like the vibe. I don't know if I like the setup. So if you just read about a career or you just hear about it in class or you're doing an online class, you don't get to experience what that really means to you and what that is like. And is that a work environment that you want to be in? Is that, you're a nurse, you're going to have on your feet all day, you're welding, you're going to have the coveralls, you're going to have the mask. Is that, is that something, it's hot. Is that, being,
what does this really feel like?
Right? Are you going to be claustrophobic being all covered up? So there's a lot of things that you don't know until you actually go out and do it. So that's a really important part. And I love that every one of our pathways has some form of like hands-on experience.
Yeah.
Yep. And, you know, I think as a parent of a CTE student and taxpayer, like these programs are invaluable to my family. I mean, just my son, even he plans to go into fire. So he's doing the fire program, right? And, but he's still doing still doing welding and diesel. But like his knowledge of engines and things like that, like he's fixed so much stuff around our house and, you know, small little welding things. His knowledge base is huge, and he's a junior. He doesn't even have his certifications yet, but it's been super helpful to our family. So I'm stoked about that.
And we'll have kids that'll go through our programs that might not go all the way through, but they still get those skills that they'll be able to use lifelong. You know, I push construction pretty hard because if you own a house, later on you want to be able to know how to fix things, how to patch holes, how to kind of do some of that stuff that will come in handy.
100%. Yeah. Especially if it's my house. Yeah.
Right.
And how often, like, and see, I'm just curious, you know, we have a ton of offerings. How often do we go through and kind of like maybe cull some out or add new ones? Like, what does that process look like?
It's yearly. I
Yearly.
mean, we just went through that process to set courses for next year, and we're constantly looking at proactively, reflectively as well. What are the courses that the programs we currently offer? Are they relevant? We're looking at moving. We've had a senior level cybersecurity class. We're looking at actually moving that. We're moving that to a sophomore level to start to build a pathway, because there's a huge demand for cybersecurity, and students can walk out of high school and make a really great living wage. So there's opportunity to be able to look at some of that. And so we're constantly updating. And that's where I go back to, not to sound like a broken record, but those industry partners are so huge for us, because they're driving what we're seeing in its industry. We're not just creating a cybersecurity pathway because it's bright and shiny.
For fun.
We're creating it because industry is saying this is what we need in our computer sciences.
Well, so you're seeing that from our community partners, which is huge. But are you also seeing that with how closely do you all look at what else is happening around the country, or is that even a thing?
Absolutely. So I was just in December. I was at a national conference. For Association of Career Technical Educators. Lots of similar trends across the nation. Of course, hot button topics like teacher retention are everybody's talking about that. How do we recruit and retain really high quality teachers? But also, what are the most relevant programs? AI is a huge topic across the nation, right?
Because it's booming. Yeah,
absolutely.
Of course. Yeah.
And AI isn't anything. So So we definitely take a look on a regular basis on updating our programs, bringing new programs on board, and then cycling out programs that maybe aren't as relevant or students aren't as engaged in as they were previously.
Follow West Ada School District across your preferred social media channels: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Nextdoor, and YouTube. You can find us there today.
And, you know, something that we were talking about before, I just kind of want to circle back on it. It's not just skills that our students are learning. Like it's a confidence or something that they're gaining. Do you want to touch on that, how hands-on actually helps build their confidence?
I think with CTE, there's that kind of magical recipe that happens with our students in that, and I don't know if they would pinpoint it, but part of the design of CTE is that I've talked about industry partnerships, right? But also in the classroom, there's embedded leadership. And so we have career technical student organizations, and those are a part of all of our CTE courses. It probably doesn't scream loudly to students, but all of our CTE teachers, a lot of them have come out of industry. And so they have this leadership essence about them where they really understand what it's like to be in industry and come from that career. And now they've come into teaching. And so there's this embodiment of leadership that our teachers really exude, I think. And it's also embedded in our curriculum. And then there's also a component of career readiness. And so there's always a career exploration component of our courses. And then also just trusting students to go out into a shop and put a car up in the air on a lift and change the oil. Right. But what that does is it signals to students, we believe that you can do it.
Right.
And we're going to give you the tools and the safe, we're going to make sure you're safe and you're supported and go do it. And if you mess up, it's a safe environment to make those mistakes, reflect on them, learn, and then keep moving forward. And so that's really hard to replicate anywhere else. And I think we do that really well on CT. And an outcome of that is students walk out of our programs with this level of confidence that I think you're seeing in your own son, where he has the technical skills, but he also has the confidence to go tackle that project. Where he knows that, okay, that the stakes are reasonable and manageable.
Right.
Well,
sorry.
Go ahead,
That's Wendy said that with the construction program. You're going to be a homeowner someday, and as an adult, I see that the lack of confidence. Like, if I tear this off, I may not be able to fix it.
Right. I don't want to break it.
I don't want to break
wrong.
it. Yes, but like you said, the safe environment where they can get into a whole engine and take it apart and know that they can. Confidence that they can put it back together and figure it out.
Well, and you said something, Will, that interested me. I mean, obviously, we've got instructors, we've got teachers who kind of have that automatic buy-in, like they've been there, done that. How do we find our teachers? What does that look like from your perspective? It's got to be challenging. I think
it's challenging. Although I will say we have been able to always land with really great people.
Right.
Our teachers are the heroes, right? And a lot of them, I mean, they've come out of industry, and quite frankly, they have done really well in their fields.
Not their first day.
Right?
Sure.
And then so they have experience coming out of it, but they tend to want something a little more. Money's one thing. Money's great, right?
Of course.
Salary, a living wage is wonderful. But for a lot of our teachers, I think they see that there's something more that they could contribute, and there's this calling, I guess, that they go, how else can I contribute to our community? What profession could allow me to continue to be a part of this industry that I really love, but I don't necessarily want to be welding in a shop day in and day out. But maybe I could help facilitate that passion and translate that passion to students. And so I think they see that opportunity. So we end up recruiting a lot out of industry. We advertise on like Indeed and different job. They tend to not come to education websites to find jobs. They're not education trained. Not all of them. I was an ag teacher in West Ada at Meridian High, actually. I started my career there, and I was traditionally trained as a teacher. I had a bachelor's degree and all of that. So, but that's not necessarily the case with like a lot of our programs. They're coming out of industry, and then we work through the certification process with them. So yeah, it's a challenge to recruit, but once we find them, they're usually really, really good, and they want what's good for kids, and they're passionate about their topic. And then kids have there's this immediate credibility. They've walked the walk.
There's buy-in.
There's buy-in. And so kids will, they really will work closely with those teachers. They hang on every word they say because they have that real world experience. And those teachers are really good about, when I was in industry, this is what this looked like. And then again, they stay relevant because they are working closely with our industry partners to make sure that they understand what the current trends are. So just because they've been out of an auto shop or a welding shop or whatever it might be, doesn't necessarily mean that they don't understand the current relevant trends and are bringing that into the classroom and staying updated with it.
Makes sense.
And you mentioned at your national conference the conversation about teacher retention, which has been a lot of my work in past roles. So if I could to, all of our listeners and viewers out there, if teaching is something that's on your heart and you have industry experience, don't let that deter you, because there are wonderful alternative pathways to certification, especially for CTE teachers. We want you and need you in the classroom, and we'll work with you and we'll work with the state to help you get there. So that's my little plug for CTE teachers if we can.
It's huge. It's huge. Well, Wendy, I don't know. I mean, for you, when you're talking to middle schoolers, and there's this mountain of 26 different pathways. How do you help? What would you advise listeners to in terms of navigating all the different pathways? How would you advise our parents to investigate or research that stuff?
We host open houses, right? We have an open house. So like obviously come, because we open up our labs and stuff so they can come walk through. At the high schools, there's going to be a charting your high school.
It's course selection night. They're mid-January or late January through mid-February.
Yeah. So I will be at those as well to answer questions. Our website has a lot of information that kind of breaks down it. But I think the first part is like, what is your kid interested in? What are they, and it might
be their passion kind of thing,
and there's a lot of opportunities. And I tell the kids, like, pick a couple pathways, explore things. If it, try and like reach out of your comfort zone as well. You might find something that you didn't know that you would enjoy. And then that's the thing is like also talk to their counselors. There's a lot of resources out there, but it is kind of hard if the parents aren't aware these programs exist to try and find that information. But I would always recommend start with your kid's counselor, either at the middle school or high school, because they can get those parents in touch with me.
Yeah.
And how early can kids get started?
We have, I think, 4-ish of our magnet programs that start freshman year. Most of them start sophomore year.
Okay.
And then we have a handful of programs that are just located in our home high schools that start freshman year.
Well, from a parent perspective, just kind of a bit on our journey, we started when my oldest son was in 8th grade. We came to the CTE open house night. We were in this room here. My son practiced CPR. And he was like, I think I might want to do the EMT route. And so he started with sports med. And I really like the way the pathways are designed. So you kind of have this like introductory early on. So not sports med, Introduction to Emergency Medicine, I think, is the class he started with. And he earned his EMT basic in there. But then he kind of found these other options. There's a police and fire combo class right in the beginning, right? And you can kind of decide, are you police or fire interested? And then found the fire route. And he just knew that he liked working on trucks and that kind of thing. So it was a natural option. But it really, those open houses, the course selection night, don't be afraid to reach out because there is a ton of information. We have so many offerings.
Yeah.
It can be a little overwhelming, but it's doable as someone who's gone through it,
Yeah. Well, you've already talked about this eloquently already, but I mean, our community partners, kids going and doing internships with Kendall Ford or whomever. Can you just speak to that a little bit more? I mean, that's got to be the hands-on stuff. Again, has got to be
apprenticeships
massively
and things like that.
Huge for them. What does that look like for internships and those kinds of things?
Yeah, and so most students start with our pathway sophomore year, right? And so we have them working with theory, right, and all the instructional background and knowledge they need to have, that academic knowledge, and then as they move into junior year and senior year. It becomes more and more skills based. And so senior year, usually their third year in the program, they are placed in some kind of an internship. So like I said earlier, we have students heading out to like Kendall Ford this week for their auto internships. And that really is, huge shout out to our industry partners. They open their doors. They don't really get anything out of it other than the benefit is lots of times they hire our students.
Right.
So they know that, and the ones that have the buy-in in our community understand that they will get the payoff down the road.
Sure.
And so students walk in, they work closely with, I'll stick with the Kendall Ford example. They work closely with a auto technician and actually see what are the aspects of the job, and they actually put in hours towards their internship, and that becomes part of the pathway. I think a huge component of what we do and is really, really important. And again, if we didn't have those internship opportunities, I just don't think students would really grasp what that field is really like. And then also to be able to then pass an industry certification, just having that practical hands-on experience really helps them to be able to have that real-world application to then work through those industry certifications and be successful at them.
That's really cool.
Keeping it real, though, there are, I'm sure, some challenges, and this is just like an anecdotal observation or thought, I should say. Students might be enticed by these opportunities. Oh, I can make a lot of money. When you're I'm thinking I'm all boys, so that's always my reference, but like you're a 16, 17-year-old boy and you're like, oh, I could go work in industry and make a lot of money. Is keeping them in school and finishing school a challenge, or do we not see that very much?
Not necessarily. I think they stay in school and they want to finish because they want access to the CTE programs.
And then with those certifications.
Yes. And what I think we do see a little bit is that students may be quick to jump into, because there's such a need in industry for it's specific, like small engine repair.
Right.
It's really difficult to find technicians. And that's an interesting industry right now also. And so if a student walks into an internship, it's pretty likely that that company is going to hire them.
Right.
And so I think it's very tempting for a student to go, oh, I'm going to jump right into that. What I spoke to earlier, though, is I want to make sure students get into a career that they're really going to love and enjoy, right?
Sure.
But we also know, I mean, we've all been there. I switched majors. And
I'm still trying to figure it all out, man.
Right?
Yeah. Sure.
What I think the beauty of what we provide students is they're able to pivot. So if they decide, you know, I really liked small engine repair when I was 19, 20, 21. Actually, I think I do want to go get that associate's. I actually want to go be an auto technician or whatever it might be, right? Their ability to pivot and change directions, I really think they get an advantage based off of how we prepare them with their technical skills and their ability to interview and work with companies and if they need to change directions, they can go do that. Yeah. The reality right now, what we're seeing, surveys are showing a couple things that we're seeing with students. One is this generation, and not all. This is going to kind of
general.
This is general, right?
Yeah.
They don't see the value in college like we probably did. It's changed significantly.
For sure.
They really need to see that there's a career profession on the other side. If they're going to put 4 years in and they're going to be go into debt and walk out with student loans and then walk into a low-paying career, that's a hard pill for them to swallow.
For sure.
And so that has really shifted in that students aren't sure that they want to go to college, which I think is okay in that we can make sure students, if they don't go to college, there's other opportunities for them. And again, that's the sweet spot I think for CTE is that it really allows them to go multiple directions because it's not just that they have a certification, they have the confidence, they have the knowledge, they've worked with industry, they have some leadership experience. And so they're just prepared differently. Right now, we have about 62% of our West Ada high school students that take a CTE course, which is awesome. I'd love to see that be 100%.
Sure,
right?
climb it up. Sure.
That would be one of my visions is that we have more students that take at least one CTE course every year. Just to open their eyes, just to open it up, open the doors. Whether if you're into technical writing and that's what you want to do, right, or you're really an art student. There's a CTE course that can fit your interests, and whether you take it for a semester or a year, or you decide to finish that pathway and commit to that doesn't necessarily matter as much as it does just the exposure to lots of different opportunities for students in high school.
That's cool. Well, and Wendy, I don't know, we talked about this a little bit earlier, but we're here in front of this amazing ambulance simulator, but the auto paint booth over at Meridian High, and some of those, it's not cheap. That's amazing equipment. How important, how cool is it, I guess, for our students to have opportunities like that?
I think it's amazing. They get to practice, like Will said, that they get to practice and kind of experiment. And if they make mistakes, it's in a safe environment.
Well, and no kidding, not to interrupt you, but no kidding. Like when I was over at the auto paint booth at Meridian High or the diesel tech, I mean, that stuff, again, I forget what the auto paint booth cost. The instructor was telling me, and it was not cheap, but just to see them have the opportunity to use that gear.
Yeah. I mean, we have semis that our students work on in diesel. Yeah. We have the paint booth. We have our welding facilities are set up.
And this whole room, I mean, the camera's obviously not in the whole room, but it's set up like a hospital. I mean,
right. I mean, we
have
the lab for the CNA students, the EMT. Like we partner with ISU, so our pharmacy technician students actually get to use the pharmacy labs at ISU, and they're just amazing opportunities for these kids to practice these skills and learn in that environment. You know, they're not quite out doing an internship yet, but they get to see what it's like to be in those industry standard areas.
Right. And go ahead.
I would just add that, money, when we're using taxpayer dollars, right, we have to be really cognizant of the impact.
Yeah. Of course.
And I think that, and I wouldn't say it's an argument, but I think the case for CT is just so easy for me to talk about because our taxpayers how many of us have had to have a plumber come out or an HVAC technician or an electrician, and then you get the bill for it, right? And not that you're going to do all your home repairs, right? But part of that is driven by a labor shortage in those areas. Right. And so by us being able to prepare, for me, one of our biggest goals in education, because I've been a CTE guy, but I've also been a building principal. And so I see the bigger perspective as well, just beyond CTE. Love CTE though. That's amazing, right? Of course, right. The reality is that our students will be able to walk out. Our hope is that students will be able to walk out of West Ada high schools and be able to be productive, contributing members of our society, right, of our community, whether they stay local. I mean, we hope they do. Right. But if we have the careers and the opportunities in our valley in Idaho to keep students here, we want to keep them, right? They understand
it's huge for Idaho.
Yeah, it's huge for Idaho. Yeah. So I think there's a bigger conversation around what CTE does for Meridian, does for West Ada, does for Idaho, does for our nation. But for Idaho and for the Valley, when we have students that walk out of West Ada high schools, they understand our values. They understand what it's like to live in our valley. They understand that there's a need. And so when we're able to have students that walk out of our schools and have skills and be able to, be an electrician, be a whatever it might be, it's going to contribute to make life easier for all of us. And so I think it's really a win-win when our students have the skills necessary to be able to contribute to our society in a positive way. And so for me, I think the investment, the ambulance simulator, it's a significant investment. But it's going to make sure that when you call 911, you have an EMT that's qualified. They understand it. They have the background and training, and it can start with our local public schools. And I think that's a real advantage to what we're able to do in West Ada and in public education.
That's absolutely cool. Well, and Wendy, you mentioned, you work with kind of 8th graders coming in, freshmen, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But if there are CTE students who graduate with a certification and they want to take that next step after high school, if they want to do a 2-year program or a 4-year program somewhere, do they work with you? Do they work with their specific college and career counselors at their building? What does that next step look like? Do we even help them, or do we say, good luck, figure it out?
So they will work with their home high school college and career counselor. I am working towards kind of helping out with them a little bit more. I want to be more hands-on with our capstone students. Mm-hmm. Our programs, and I've talked to our community colleges. Our programs do align with a lot of those programs. Our welding program, you can go to ISU, CWI, CSI. So a lot of our programs do align with other 2-year programs, so we can kind of help direct them in that. If they want to pursue their higher education to get some more certifications going.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
The West Ada Education Foundation's Thank a Teacher program is a great way to support and express gratitude for your child's teacher.
El programa Agradezca a un maestro de la Fundación para la Educación de West Ada es una excelente manera de apoyar y expresar gratitud por el maestro de su hijo.
All proceeds directly benefit the teacher or program designated at the time of donation.
Todos los ingresos beneficiarán directamente al maestro o al programa designado en el momento de la donación.
You can find a link in the episode description to Thank a Teacher.
Puedes encontrar un enlace en las notas del programa del podcast para hacer una donación.
Will, earlier you kind of started bringing up leadership and student organizations within career technical education. So for the past 4 or 5 years, I've had the privilege of being a judge at Business Professionals of America, BPA. They have huge, it's so fun.
That's cool.
That's awesome. It's the best. And then I come home and I tell my kids what losers they are because I'm just kidding. But
that's good for them. That's totally good for them.
Yeah. Builds grit. But these students are so impressive. They're putting together C-suite level presentations, and they're speaking with such great authority and eloquence. Do you want to touch on student organizations and how those really lead to that leadership component?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, interesting, because I think sometimes CTE is this, people are aware of it, but there's components of it that are, it's really challenging to understand sometimes.
Or make those connections maybe.
Right. And so I'll start by saying there's kind of a few main components of a really high quality we call them programs. Okay. So if you're a welding program, right, that you have the curriculum and you have an industry partnership or a technical advisory committee. One of the components is that we have an active student leadership organization. We call them career technical student organizations, CTSOs. They're not clubs. And I think that's often something that gets intermixed is they go, oh, that's an FFA club. It's a leadership organization. And what sets it apart is it is intracurricular. And so it's embedded in the curriculum. So we teach about FFA, we teach about BPA in our CTE classes. And I think sometimes students are like, why am I learning about FFA? Why am I learning about TSA, BPA, right? Like, what is this all about? Once they get a taste of it, then they realize like, oh, there's some really cool opportunities. So for example, like our auto students, they participate in skills activities, competitions.
Like Skills USA?
Yeah, absolutely, yes. And they actually have real world troubleshooting activities, and then they compete against other students across Idaho
what a
and
cool value.
the nation, right? Like, So there's that team and individual component that is part of them as well. But yeah, they're just, I was an FFA member in high school, and I will say that just the ability to put together a speech and deliver that speech to an audience.
They are awesome at it. Yeah. Sorry, I apologize for interrupting, but they really do an amazing job of public speaking and all the things. Yeah.
Yeah. And again, that's where I keep going back to this advantage I think that CTE students have is they're exposed to these opportunities to be able to develop leadership skills and these soft skills that employers are just so eager for. It was interesting, some labor statistics that have come out. They surveyed business owners across the nation, and this was students that had just graduated with a bachelor's degree, so 4 years out of high school, and they said that a majority, like I think it was 52% of students couldn't maintain eye contact during the interview.
All those soft skills,
right?
Yeah, sure.
There was a percentage, I think it was about 15% that brought their mom to the interview. Kidding.
Don't get me started on the cell phone thing. Looking at so for you that are listening, I'm making cell phone gestures. But anyway,
Then there was also a percentage that in a digital interview, a Zoom interview, they wouldn't turn their camera on. So there's some of these soft skills that our industry, our business owners are so eager for our students to have that they don't, when they walk in with them, they're like, oh my gosh, you can write and you can speak coherently with thought and you can not embarrass us in front of some of our clients, right? And we can trust you. And you're young and you have things to learn. You're a lifelong learner, but you're walking in with these soft skills that are just really above and beyond. So, and that I contribute that a lot to our CTSOs, our career technical student organizations, and the fact that it's really embedded in what we do, and our teachers believe in it. Our teachers know that it's part of a quality program, and it's part of what it kind of brings all the prongs of a really effective. The student has those technical skills, right? They know how to weld.
Oh, sure.
But now they also have some leadership components as well, right? And now they can walk in and they get an interview and they can get the job. And the foot in the door is just that much easier for our students to walk into industry or career or college.
Well, and I'm blanking on my mind is not working on but the day when the high schoolers have all the younger kids come in at FFA.
Oh, Ag Expo.
Ag Expo. Sorry, thank you. Ag Expo. Yeah. Like to watch the high schoolers teaching and to your point, teaching and the younger kids is a phenomenal. It's one of my favorite days every year, and just the leadership is pretty darn amazing.
Yeah, and they take some what could be very complex tasks or concepts and speak to it in a way that's very relevant to a first grader, and that's challenging, right? And be able to engage them as these students rotate. A first grader rotates through these rotations, and students love it, right? So what a great community event, a great event for our first graders, and a partnership with our elementary teachers and elementary buildings, because ag, we all eat. And so ag is such a component of what we all are impacted by. And I think, as ag gets more and more efficient, we start to lose touch with that. So Ag Expo is just a great way for us to to see how that impacts our daily life.
That's so cool. Yeah.
I feel like we might be a little remiss, and maybe Wendy, you can help us with this, but we've mentioned, just because of my experience, CNA and fire and welding and ag, but there are a lot of CTE pathways that are maybe not so like hands-on labor type job. I'm trying to get at like you
some
mentioned
of those things that might be overlooked, kind of.
Yeah, like what are
engineering.
some of the programs that we
Computer
haven't mentioned?
sciences.
Yes,
Yep.
Computer science, engineering, we have business pathways. So yeah, there's a lot out there. So if you're like, I'm not sure that's the area I want to go.
There's just a lot. I guess my
Web
point
design,
is, yes,
yeah.
there's a lot of career pathways options, and I think a lot of parents are my age, right? I have teenagers, and so when we were in high school, it was more you think about CTE, and I don't mean to be offensive, but in my mind, it was the kids who chewed out in the ag shop, like
Right.
that was what I thought CTE was, and if a parent has that same kind of thought process, I want them to know that there are tons of career options, not just.
Yeah, and I know sometimes there's a stigma with like, those kids are going to go to trade schools.
Yeah.
Well, and I think we've mentioned it, like trade schools are very popular now because you can go in, they're less expensive, you can get done quicker, and you go out and you start making more than those that are going to college and come out with a bachelor's and kind of have like a bachelor's in whatever. I have a lot of, like, I love the CTE world. I am engaged to somebody that is an electrician, so I'm familiar with that, and he also teaches at the electricians union hall. So, but there are a lot of opportunities if if you're like, hey, that sounds great, but I want to go a different pathway. We do have business. We have, like I said, engineering, computer science, web design.
Early
childhood. If you want to be a teacher, we have
Culinary, we haven't even brought up that. Yeah, we have a beautiful
Cafe Renaissance is so amazing.
It is so good. And that line, if anyone ever wants to try Cafe Renaissance on a Thursday or Friday when they're open, you better get there early.
Right? Yes, it is busy. It is awesome. And I help out in the cafe every once in a while, just kind of help with the kids. And it's so awesome to watch them and like the confidence. We talk about the confidence of like, they are ringing up the orders. They're being waitresses or waiters. And like, it's just so fun to be able to get to watch them.
Yeah.
They have an industrial commercial kitchen. And they're
amazing.
doing food service, the full gamut, right? You line up. I mean, so that opportunity is I mean, I know it didn't exist when I was in high school.
100%.
And so how huge. I will speak to early childhood education. We have students that, a program in which students work in, go out to daycares and intern with our placed with daycares. And again, I mean, there's a huge need. Anybody that has young children and knows the need for daycares in our valley, it's huge. We also have a program that prepares students if they want to go to, it's called Education Assistant. So if they think that they may want to be a teacher, they would go and actually have placement in an elementary school to be an elementary teacher.
What a great hands-on opportunity. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and then that would be so easy. You have this teacher assistant program in high school, and then you can graduate and be a paraprofessional with the district and further your knowledge while you're going to school to become a teacher. I mean, it's a complete pipeline, if you will, for our future teachers too.
Well, are there any, we've touched on this a little bit, but are there any other misconceptions about CTE that you all would like to address? Anything that sticks out to you? Like, because you kind of touched on that. Anything else, or have we kind of covered it?
I think the big one is that we're starting to see the paradigm shift, right? Of even when I was in high school, of if you're going to be in a welding pathway, you're going to go to you're going to go into an industry. You're going to go to a vocation. It was vocational education, right?
Back in the day,
that it's just so much more than that. It's interesting because the guy that cuts my hair, I just kind of landed upon him, and then I'm sitting in the chair for the first time, and I'm like, I recognize you, and he's like, I recognize you, and I had him in class.
Oh,
he
no
was
way.
one of my students in animal science, and he went to cosmetology school, and now he is super busy as a barber. And we were talking about adding a cosmetology program, and I'm like, what would that be? And he's like, oh, kids would love that. He's like, I totally would have been enrolled in that. So there's so many opportunities. That's a CTE program. And I just don't know that people think about so many industries and careers and professions that are out there we have a CTE program for them. Not everything, but there's a lot of career technical programs that are out there. And so I just think that shifting our mindset, one, it's exposure. We've talked about it already, just exposing students to different opportunities. That value is really important to me, that high school can be a really great time to explore and figure out what you want to do, or at least get some footing into some things that interest you, and you might surprise yourself, right? High school students, but it also is an opportunity to be able to set yourself up for a profession that could be a lifelong profession. So I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions. I'm not sure if there's any other. That's probably the biggest one.
I think that's the biggest one, is that, and like we said, like just that paradigm shift of like, hey, if you want to go to college and do the 4-year thing, that's awesome. But we want there to be options and opportunities.
Right.
And that's what I tell any parents I talk to, any kids, is that you have options, and I think, like Will's mentioned before, is like fewer kids want to go take out the student loans. So you can get a good career and go straight into the workforce, or you can continue on at a community college or a trade school, get a couple more years of training, and then go and not have to take that big.
Well, and a lot of these skills are usable right after high school. So you can be working and making a decent income while you're going to school and furthering your education.
We have a lot of students that will graduate, work as they're going to school. You come out in the CNA, you graduate with a CNA certification, so you can start working. We have, if you're in it first semester, we have students that are second semester seniors that are working, and so they are working towards that. And as they're taking their nurses, courses, they want to be an RN, they get to have that, like, they actually get to work as a CNA as they're going through. So
that's very cool.
It just kind of gives them a step ahead.
Absolutely.
Well, as we're kind of wrapping up here, I mean, we've kind of touched on a lot of stuff here, but any other advice? And I'm sure there are parents listening who are like, oh my gosh, this is all awesome, but how do I navigate this? So I know it's a very broad question, but any other advice that either one of you would have to that parent that's out there going, golly, how do I help my kid navigate this? What would your advice be?
I think Wendy touched on it really well. One is work close. Your counselor is going to be a great resource at your home school, right? Two, we just revamped our website, our CTE website, which can be located on our West Ada website. Just search CTE or go to programs and select career technical education.
I'll include that in our show notes for everybody.
And I appreciate that. And it has a link to all of our different pathways. There's a lot. One of the cool thing is we have a lot of opportunities for students. The difficult part about the challenge, right, is that it can become kind of overwhelming.
Sure.
So the nice thing about our pathway, some of our pathways they get exposure in middle school. Family and consumer science, pre-engineering, computer explorations. And so you may, as a middle school student or have a middle school student in your home that's like, oh, I really love this gateway to technology, pre-engineering stuff. Great. Then you can continue with that pathway. You kind of already know where you might be headed. And then you start into those freshman courses and then decide, well, maybe I like it, or maybe I want to pivot a little bit different. But it gives you an opportunity to just move a different direction. So your counselor, our website's a great resource. We're happy to field calls too. If you have a parent that we oftentimes have talk with parents like, hey, I'm trying to decide how to help my student through this, what makes sense. We have, like I said, the open house. We have those, the
course selection night. It's like, seriously, I'm really plugging that hard because they're coming up soon. Like, come to them. There's one at every single one of our big comprehensive high schools, all 6 of them. End of January, middle of February.
I'll put that in the show notes. I'll put that in the show notes too.
That won't just be CTE, but it'll be an opportunity to look at all different pathways for your high school students.
I would also say, I know the course description book can be overwhelming, but it's laid out in such a way, and it's available on our website, where you can, if you were like, oh, I'm interested in welding, what does that pathway look like? It lays it all out in a flow chart format. And so you can see it in a visual way. If I do this as a sophomore, welding 1 and welding 2, welding 3, welding 4, then that will be the complete pathway. And I think that we forget about that resource sometimes, but and it can be a little overwhelming, but it's searchable. It's on our website. It's digital, and you can pull it up and reference it. And then also students don't hesitate to reach out to older siblings, high school students, and say, what would you recommend? And I think a lot of our high school students are great resources as quasi mentors to be able to say this. Hey, let me give you the inside loop on what it's like to navigate this. Or, if you're a freshman and you're trying to decide if you're going to travel to a career tech center, talk to a student that's traveled it. They're probably going to tell you it's not as bad. It's not as scary as you might think. And they'll help you navigate our Watts system, transportation system. So there's really cool resources in a district our size. We get to do some really cool things for kids. It can be a little overwhelming, but there's the other side of that is there's people that are happy to help. So reach out to your homeschool, reach out to us at district office. We're happy to help you navigate that. Teachers are also, if you're interested in photography, for example, at our high school, and you want to talk to that teacher about that pathway, our teachers want to talk about their pathways, and they want to talk to students and educate them and give them the resources. They would rather you email or call than be confused. So reach out to them. They're an advocate.
Well, as a video production guy, I mean, some of the classes that I've seen our video production folks do. To your point, I mean, it's so cool to see when I see some of the stuff that our high schoolers are doing. I'm like, holy cow! If I'd have had that opportunity when I was a kid, it would have been a game changer. So it's just cool.
We have and on that note, we have a really cool partnership that we're excited about with Project Filter, in which some of our programs are putting together some really relevant information on current things that impact students. Whether it's vaping or the stresses of social media, whatever it might be. Students really know what's impacting them, and so we have our high school students putting together Project Filter's Idaho a wide initiative. And so we were really excited that we got approached with that partnership and asked to put together some videos. And I've seen some first edits on them, and they're really amazing.
So impressive.
So we're going to highlight. Cool. We're excited. Cool. February's CTE month. So it's coming up, and we are really excited about that. We're going to do a board spotlight in February, and we're going to highlight one of those videos. So excited to show that off, and excited for that partnership, and just the quality of video is just amazing.
And it's not easy, and they do a great job of it. Yeah. Wendy, from your perspective, any advice or any parting shots? I mean, I know we've covered a lot, but any other advice before we say goodbye?
I think just to kind of echo Will, is like reach out to your counselors. They're a great resource. They have information. If there's a question they can't answer, they will direct them to me or Will or somebody in our office. Because we're here, we're doing our best to get the information out to everybody. And we want to answer their questions. We want them to be, able to get in these programs and know what's out there for them.
So cool.
Yeah,
so cool.
That's great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate, as a consumer of your product, thank you so much for all the work you do.
Thank you for having us.
Well, the stuff, again, there's the pathways, there's so much out there, but it's just really cool. We say it every time, but I just love having a chance to talk to people like you who care about kids and are trying to shepherd them along. It's very cool. So thanks for your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all.
Well, again, thank you so much for being here. I mean, I hope you're not overwhelmed by all of the information, because there's a
lot of information, but it's navigable. Is that a word?
Yeah, for
navigable.
sure.
You can do it. Yeah,
you can do it. And as Will and Wendy both said, they're here to help and answer questions, whether it's on the phone or whatever else. So that's a great thing. Anyway, glad you're here. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcast: Spotify, Google, Amazon. If you listen on Apple, then rate us and leave a review. We'd love that. You can go to YouTube. And again, as Katie said earlier, this is one of those episodes where there's a lot of different B-roll, different footage of actual what welding looks like, what auto looks like. So take a watch and see some of that stuff to help you kind of inform your decision-making process, there as well. And we want to hear from you. This week's question, and I think Katie's great for this because she's a CTE mom, as she said. But
I'll give you all my advice.
So what advice would you give to families who are unsure if CTE is the right choice for their child? Because we really want to, the people who are coming along behind us, if you've got a middle schooler or a high schooler, reach out to your friends who have an older child who have been through CTE, because they, I'm sure, can give a lot of great advice.
Well, and like Will and Wendy both mentioned in our conversation, just give it a try. If there's nothing, just by trying a CTE pathway doesn't mean you're stuck in it. So give it a try.
Well,
but communicate those questions and advice to us. We'd love to hear from you.
We'd love that. You can learn more at westdata.org/podcast, and we've got some other great stuff.
We next we get to talk to some more of our amazing colleagues. It's always fun to bring them in from out in the field. We have Bridget O'Brien. She is a counselor at Mountain View High School, and then we also have Allison Terrell. She's an 8th grade counselor at Lowell Scott Middle School. And so they're going to come on and really talk about that transition from middle to high school. The district, I know I've been working on a couple of committees about that transition, and we're doing some fun things. We're going to have a kind of a welcome to high school orientation night in the spring at every high school. So just really how to help our kids go from 8th grade to 9th grade and make it smooth as possible.
Well, and even from 5th grade to 6th grade.
Oh, too. 5th grade to 6th grade, middle school transition.
That can be kind of a tough time for kids and for families. So to help you all navigate that, a couple of our rock star counselors who have been there, done that, and it'll be a lot of fun.
It'll be fun. And then keep an eye out too, because we're going to do some more on location. We're gonna bring you a little pulse episode from the big Stinky
Sneaker on January 21st between Meridian High and Mountain View. And I don't know if you all could even hear the recording here today. There were class bells and students moving around. I don't know how much of that you heard. I'm interested to see, because Stinky Sneaker is a loud event.
It's a big, loud basketball game, and we're here for it. So
gonna be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.